before I get to my physical birth and who I am, I want to talk about my spiritual birth. Because it was at my lowest in life that I found the Lord. You see, by the grace of God, He reached down into my life and He made an opportunity for me to end up on this TV show on TLC called Cracking Addiction. This show was only meant for my girlfriend Angelica, but God had a different plan for my life. And because of me going on this show, I got to go to this treatment facility called Origins, the #1 rated treatment facility in all the nation. It's in South Padre Island, Texas. And it's there that I found a relationship with God. It was a 12-step program that through working these steps that I knew that Jesus was the higher power these steps are talking about. And that's all a gift. However, my struggle down this road started in my early childhood years. And in those years, it's where fear started to creep into my life. And early on in my childhood years, I coped with this fear by filling the void that only a relationship with God could fill with playing sports. But this only masked my problem that would eventually keep growing and growing. With playing sports, I found my identity. It was a false identity. Pride and ego and this fear of what everybody else thought about me was starting to consume my life in my early childhood years. This got worse and worse. Into my teenage years is where this fear started to consume my life. It was when I went from a private Christian school all the way to the 8th grade into high school. My freshman year, I went to Pittsburgh High School, and that's when the fear took over. It was when I found how to cope with that fear. I got temporary ease and comfort from that fear by drinking alcohol. Slowly, the alcohol moved to the marijuana, and it took over my life. I stopped playing sports. I had no direction in my life. What I didn't know back then is that it's a double cross. That addiction is a double cross. It led to harder and harder drugs, to where my college years were stripped from me. They were taken away. And what I thought at the time was my whole life. It was a very hard road. But that road led to me finding my identity in Jesus Christ, and my eyes were open to who I truly am, that I'm an adopted son of God. And at my time here at Messenger Bible College, I want to deepen and strengthen my walk with God, and who knows where He's going to take me. So let me get back to who I am. My name is Matthew Stice. My physical birth was on June 16, 1976 in San Leandro, California. I was born to a loving family. My dad, Ken Stice, my mother, Betty Stice, who are married to this day. I had an older brother, Daniel Stice, and a younger sister, Julie Stice. We were brought up in a Christian home because of my mother. My dad, who's not a believer, he was the type of father that took care of his family and was a very honest man. I went to a private school till 8th grade, and I went to church every weekend. As I said earlier, I found my identity in sports. My whole life revolved around sports. And I found who I thought I was by receiving the attention that I got from being a good athlete. That wasn't who I was. That could only last for so long. So by the time my teenage years came along and I went to a public school, the fear was consuming me at a point where I was only concerned about fitting in and not getting my butt kicked. So the sports got pushed aside, because when I found a way to mask that fear with alcohol that went on to weed, before I knew it, I was drinking and smoking every single day. And I completely lost my direction in life. I completely lost who I was. Addiction is such a double cross that by the time I was out of high school, the disease had progressed to the point where I had moved on from just beer and weed to hardcore drugs. And my college years were stripped away from me. I bounced around from 2 different junior colleges, from Pittsburgh to Concord, in the area that I grew up in. And before I knew it, the only thing that mattered to me was getting high. My whole point in life at that point was to not be sober. So not only did my college years get stripped away, but what I thought to be was my whole life. I accepted my lot in life as being an addict. I had no purpose. My life became meaningless. And before I knew it, it had progressed to the point where I was homeless, pitiful in everybody's eyes, shooting dope, lost. But what I didn't understand at the time is that God is sovereign and God is in control, and He had a plan for my life. And by using my girlfriend Angelica's parents at the time, He made a way for me to get to a place where I could be alone with Him and accept His help. And I found my true identity in Jesus by going to treatment. At that time, I was ready for a change. And He grabbed a hold of me. Through His Word, through His truth, I became conscious of who I am. You see, the world will lie to you and give you all these different avenues to make up in your head who you are. But the reality of it is that's a lie. The absolute truth of the Word of God opened my spiritual eyes to who I really am. And from that day on, I've been a changed man. I want to continue this walk with God. And I know that me going to Messenger Bible College is only going to open my eyes further to what it is that God is asking for me. I want to deepen and strengthen my walk with God in any way I can. Because I know that this life is not lived for myself. Me living for my selfish pleasures got me ran into the gutter. And I know now that God has a plan for my life, and if I live for God and others, that I could make a difference in other people's lives. Because I'm not living this life for me on this earth, I'm living for eternity. I understand through the Word of God and through God's truth that my life lived here on this earth is going to determine my eternity. And anybody that I can help along that path to where an eternity is figured out through my life, that has eternal value and purpose. I'm so thankful for what God has done for me in my life. And my life up to this point, from this point on, I should say, will be lived for God and for what I can do for His kingdom. And instead of worrying about gathering up treasures on this earth, my treasure will be gathered up in heaven. Thank you for your time. God bless.